Hello, Reese from the Point Music Podcast thingy, and hopefully this thing isn't going to be lagging or anything like that. This special episode is brought to you by the letter F for FRENTE. FRENTE, amazing Australian band that have been around for a very long time. They disappeared and came back. They are celebrating 30 years of this album here, which I should have. There we go. Marvin the Album, which did all amazing things in 1992-93. Had the hits on it like Ordinary Angels, Accidentally Kelly Street, No Time. Anyway, got to chat with Angie, Hart and Simon Austin, talking all things about Marvin the Album, and they're going to be touring it in May, and we're going to go there. We're going to see them play at the zoo. It's going to be great. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this chat. I did. They're lovely people. This is Simon and Angie from FRENTE. And we are rolling. Simon Austin and Angie Hart from FRENTE. Thank you for joining me. This is cool. Like, okay, just so you know, I'm a Gen Xer, so I was at the end. So this is basically, you guys were part of my musical blossoming when I was in the 90s. So this is a very cool thing. I just thought I'd point that out.
That's super cool.
So, firstly, congrats and happy anniversary to Marvin the Album. Cheers to Marvin turning 30. I do want to show you something. Can you see that? There we go. I don't know if it's...
Yeah.
Yay! Dug it out of cassettes.
Fantastic.
Yay!
Oh, that's awesome.
So we'll get into the whole Marvin the Album thing, but one thing I want to bring up firstly is that there seems to be a bit of resurgence or fascination with Australian albums, particularly from the 90s, that are now celebrating like milestones, right? And I don't see it happening for like bands in the 80s and 70s, like NXS's stuff, which I love NXS and that too, but you have something like Rat Cat's Blind Love, and I love Rat Cat, who celebrated 30 years 2 years ago, and you got Regurgitator's Unit, which is celebrating 25 years, and Marvin the Album celebrating 30. What is the fascination with Australian, particularly Australian albums of the 90s that are hitting those milestones, do you think?
It's a great question, and I have noticed a lot of them, and a lot of our friends who and our peers are doing it as well. It's not just the records that had a lot of exposure and were pretty big. It's ones that people like the Underground Lovers who achieved a kind of a certain level, amazing band, and they're celebrating their release too. And there's tons and tons of bands doing it. I don't know the answer, and I've kind of thought about it, and I can't come up with an answer. It's just there seems to be, I think maybe we're all now getting to the point where sort of we did all the work, we want to kind of celebrate the things that we like. I don't know, Ange?
Yeah, I have no idea either way. It's particularly Australian, besides the fact that there's a bigger population in all of the other countries, and those bands have maybe been able to be functioning on a more day-to-day level than Australian bands. I don't know.
What do you think, Reese? What have you got a take on it?
Yeah, I had an epiphany in the shower the other night, because I was...
Great. Best place.
Yeah, it is. It's my universe. It's basically where I think about the universe and ponder all sort of shit like that. You had a few events happening at that time. Now, firstly, in Australia, we had something very unique in Triple J. It was hitting its blossom in the 90s. I mean, some people may disagree with that, but I think it really did. And you guys were part of that beginning part of that boom, okay? So it could be a fascination with particularly us that were teenagers also in the 90s, so all the Gen Xers and the beginning of the millennials that had this nostalgia to it, and very fond memories of them finding their rebelliousness and finding new music, because we didn't have streaming clearly back then, and the only way we really found music, apart from going to shows, which most of us couldn't do because we were underage, was through something like Triple J. So you have that
Mm.
advent there, and also a blossoming of new sounds coming out. I mean, we just came out of the goddamn hair metal and just the super glossy pop, and you have people branching out and discovering, like, you guys came along just as Nirvana, like Marvin the album came along just as Nirvana's Nevermind basically hit big. So you were something completely different.
Yeah.
Compared to all the grunge that was coming out. So you guys were like a breath of fresh air with this sort of like, what was it, to quote you, Simon? What'd you say? There was that pop that doesn't know any better. And you were using stuff like jazz and Spanish sounds and that sort of stuff to come in. And I don't think there's any distortion on Marvin, is there? On the guitar?
No.
There's only one song that's a little bit different, and that's One I Know, which is basically a very curious kind of chorus.
Bit of chorus.
Yeah, saturated kind of stuff, but that is it. So we've been bombarded with this wash of like distortion and grunge and angst, and you guys come along with Marvin, and it's just this beautiful eclectic amalgamation of stuff. So I think that's why this album in particular sort of rung home for a lot of people. That's my thoughts anyway.
I think that's really well observed about that record, because I read something the other day that was like, oh yeah, actually that's a really good description of it. It's a lot of different things that we love. There's a little bit of kind of rock and alt rock in it. There's a lot of pop music in it. There's a lot of Latin and jazz music in it. And there's a lot of stuff that influenced us in a lot of ways, but we couldn't have the language to put it in there. I mean, Angie and I bonded over lots of hip hop, like lots of Public Enemy,
all right,
stuff like that. But there's none of that in there.
No.
It's just
that a little rappy bit in "See Believe."
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that went into it, and I think we did it. We recorded it, we wrote it and recorded it kind of not really being too aware of what was happening around us. We were quite insular. And so then when we started to play, and I'm not a rock guitar player. I have never been, not that I dislike it. I love hard sounds. I love big hard sounds too, but I just don't make them myself. So and I think that it was also, and we might have done a little bit of it, and then because Angie's voice is it's such a weapon. To kind of like trample all over that with a big massive sound was just not right.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah. Having said that, though, we got to Shape, and then I still couldn't play any of the hard sounds. It was the guys who made the record played all that distorted stuff.
So I'm just going through my notes here. I very rarely have notes, just so you know. But you guys are a little bit special because I just got there's so many questions I want to ask.
We're noteworthy.
Yeah, there are a few tracks on this album now, because I haven't listened to Marvin in a very long time. But in the last 2 or 3 days, I've just been taking it all in. And there's a few tracks on there that sound like they were recorded at a different time or a different studio compared to all the others. What was the songs? It's track 2. Hang on, I've got the cassette. Let's have a look. No, not Accident Killer. Most Beautiful, I think, is the one that the drums in it sound a lot different to anything else on the album.
So yes, they're programmed, and so when it was recorded at the same time. But they're I mean, there's a lot of programming on there that doesn't sound like programming, but those really do. Because we wrote that song, and it was just, we tried it with a human, and it just was not happening. And Michael Koppelman, who is a producer, said, "You go away and have some lunch, and I'll program something." And he did. He programmed this thing, and he did a lot of work for Prince.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so he kind of had that in his pocket. He had all the sort of like the sort of the samples and all the sort of 808 booms and all those sort of kind of sort of mechanical sounding loops, and he just threw it all together in about an hour, and we came back and that's what it was. But yes, it does sound quite different.
So this was it fully analog recording, or were you guys going to DAT at this stage, or what was?
It was analog 48, so it was analog, a couple of synced machines because there's a lot of tracks on there, and then we mastered it two ways. We mastered it to beta. Back in those days, it was beta, not even DAT.
Oh, wow.
DAT, we'd run a couple of mixes off on DAT, but it was beta so that they could press it to a CD. But we also mastered it to the EMI 301 1-inch 2-track. And there's the vinyl pressings of that, but they're also that 2-track turned into a digital recording.
Yeah.
So it's gone through generations and generations. So it's not purely analog, but yes, the tracks were all recorded on Studas. Yeah, Studer 2-inches.
Look at us talking like nerds.
I know, because I know you produce records, and it's awesome
I
to be able to kind of
I'm
it's awesome to be able to kind of have those words.
Yeah. Well, I like nerding out with people and talking about that sort of stuff. I'm not a producer heaps, but yeah, I have done stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually.
And I was kind of contemplating on why.
Continue. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
No. You go.
I was contemplating on why the record sounds, a lot of the arrangements sound the way they do, and it's because of tape.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have the opportunity to kind of just track. We actually had to kind of work the arrangements out and then record them.
Yep.
Which we did.
That
we did 2 weeks of pre-production.
That's actually a question I was going to.
Incredibly rigorous.
You're sorry, Angie? What'd you say, Angie? Sorry.
I remember it being incredibly rigorous. Sorry, I'm disappearing into the lights disappearing.
That's right. My camera just disappeared.
I remember it being incredibly rigorous when we were recording. You can't? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. You'll see me. As I said, that camera's playing up.
Okay.
I'm here.
Yeah, working with Michael, he really put us through the ropes there, through the hoops. We had to, for myself personally, it was every syllable and every single thing that we did. Like he didn't let us up on any of it. And these days when you're recording digital, you can do drop-ins and you can record multiple tracks.
Exactly.
But we had to get those performances exactly how they were going through the album.
So this leads me to it's forking out. I've got 2 questions here. But we'll get to the one I was going to spring off with Simon. I'm still here. That camera, just ignore that camera. I'm going to post this I'm going to post this one to Angie actually. So Ange, I actually get a lot of music through to me to listen to and review and just take in and do my thing. And what I've noticed, particularly in the last 4 or 5 years of these sort of younger female songwriters and that, they're actually doing a lot of Angieisms. That's what I'm calling them in their vocal delivery. So you've always had this really unique vocal approach, and the only other person that has something similar to you is Missy Higgins, and it's basically the bit of the Australianism that's coming out. Okay, it's what it is, and that's why I think Fronte has such an appeal. Your vocals have such an appeal, and I'm getting a lot of these younger ones coming through here. They're like 16 or so, and they're actually starting to have these same sort of nuances that you have, which is really interesting. I don't know if their parents have introduced them to something like you guys, but I don't know if you've noticed that.
I think it's a great evolution. It's something, when I've done workshops and done any mentoring, that you always want to ask people to sing in their true voice. And I think over time that there's been an evolution in music where people have been accessing that more and more. They want to speak from the country that they're coming from. And I think that definitely more and more Australian artists and a lot of female representing artists have been doing that more and more. They don't want to be that slick kind of Americanized recording, which is, it's really great to hear. And I think, you know, Missy Higgins has done an amazing job of that, and then Courtney Barnett has taken that to the world as well.
Good point.
So there's this really great representation of our accent coming through in songs now.
Yeah, I think the Australian, when I hear particularly like Australian rock or even Australian hip hop or anything like that, pardon me, I like hearing our ochre. It's like listening to French hip hop. If they start sounding American, you just go, "Oh, this is not interesting." But when they speak in French accent, it rolls and it has a certain appeal to it. And Australian music, particularly sort of independent Australian music, has its unique appeal, and that's it is getting a lot lost because of the whole applying to the American rule and that, which I don't agree with, but it is what it is. But for people to have like their own unique take and use their own voice, that's something to be appreciated, and I think it's getting lost on a lot of people too.
Yeah, no, I think a true voice is it's a great start to, if you want people to hear your music and you want to stand out, then you want to sing in the voice that is actually you rather than the style of somebody. So I think people in Australia are cottoning onto the fact that they've got something unique there to offer, and they're doing it, singing
exactly
the way that we speak.
Yeah, don't be ashamed of our stuff. I mean, we drop the C-bombs a bit more than other people, but that's what we do.
I used to, I mean, Angie and I both spent a lot of years living in the United States, and I just used to love being an Australian, having the accent, you know, just because you get away with so much.
Yeah.
People don't, you get away with so much. People instantly are sort of like, oh, where do I categorize you? And you're like, well, I'm just a normal person, but I'm just kind of, I talk differently to you, and I'm a bit more in your face about the whole thing.
Yep.
It's so much fun.
Well, my sister lives over there, and I went over there in 2012, and she lived in Vegas too. And I don't think I speak like Steve Irwin or anything like that, but the first word that came out of my mouth when an American said hello to me was "g'day." And I don't say "g'day," and I just started feeling like this inner Steve Irwin coming out. It was so bizarre.
Yeah, awesome.
So going back to the other question that I had, going back to the recording and how much of a rigorous process it was, do you think an album like Marvin would be made today and be as successful as it was?
Geez, that's a great question.
I think why not? I mean, I think anything can happen, so I think why not? You know, I think that there's such a flood of albums now, and people recording them at home. I know that when we recorded Marvin, as Simon was saying, you know, it was mostly analog, and we did it in a big studio, and the rigor that we went through to make that, if you're recording in a home studio to digital, whether you have that access to have a big room with a band in it and do it the way that we were able to do things expensively.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Yeah. It's a great question, and it's one we're going to have to answer in the next few months. Not necessarily can we make a repeat of Marvin, but can we? Because we're starting to write another record.
Really?
Can we? And what do we need to do? Yep. So just at the very beginning of that process, are we able to do it in a way that kind of has that rigor? And the more I sit here working with Pro Tools, the more I'm like, you know what? All this Pro Tools is great. I want to demo stuff up, but then I want the band to play it. They have to learn that part, and we have to sit there and arrange it. I think that's what we're going to do. Sorry, Ange.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make it work.
So, I'm just searching. Yeah, got to make it work. Just searching for the way to get to the truth of it, I guess.
Yeah, well, creating
Yeah.
an album. I mean, I've been part of bands. I'm playing 4 bands currently in session and that sort of stuff too. And
Yeah, awesome.
one of the bands I play in is a reggae band, and we did like big studio work. So we spent a lot of time. It's like 6 pieces, and there's all this stuff coming in together. And I know. I mean, as a bass player, it's the most boring part because they do my tracks in one day, and then I'm basically watching the rest of everyone else do their bits. I'll be sitting there on my phone most of the time because it's just bass. I mean, I know it's an integral part of the actual sound, but it's pretty easy to lay
Not
down.
just basically, okay, you're holding it down.
Exactly.
No,
Oh yeah.
you're
But
holding the whole thing down.
if I'm good at my
It's-
job, then I don't have to do any more of it. Hey.
Yeah.
Man, it's a spine. It's the spine.
But yeah, it's just it is, no matter what you're doing, it is going to be a rigorous process. I mean, when you're doing a home recording, like what I do here, I do production here, you can take your time and go watch a movie or something like that if you don't want to get stuck down the rabbit hole of producing and that. Whereas in the studio, time is money, and you want to put all that creative element, and you want to be isolated basically, so you can focus purely on that art, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I was going with that then. That was just a brain explosion.
No, I agree with you.
Talking about that. Sorry,
Yeah.
but you and I, Simon, we were just talking about that the other day about analog. There's something to recording to tape.
Mm.
We were just remembering, because we've done a little bit of it, you know, in more recent times when you don't have to record to tape anymore. But it is terrifying because it's so precious.
Once
when
it's
you
there,
record
it's
to
there,
tape.
hey.
You've got to get it right. Yeah.
Have you guys ever watched
Yeah,
that documentary Sound City that Dave Grohl did?
No.
So Sound City was the studio.
what is it?
Well, it's a very good documentary. Sound City was the studio where Fleetwood Mac recorded Rumours, Nirvana's Nevermind. Butch Vig was part of that, and they've got with the Neve console there, and he basically saved that console from being basically like sold to someone else that didn't really appreciate it, and he then basically did a whole album recording to tape using that Neve console. And you're right. Once it's there, it's
Oh
there.
yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you've raised really, really good questions about how we're going to do this. But Sound City, I've been in Sound City.
Have you?
When I was over there, I did. Yeah, and the thing about it was that it like the walls are falling apart
Yeah.
in the mix room. They're literally the paneling is falling off the walls, but they don't want to change it because it really does have a real certain acoustic response
Yeah, that drum room
that
is
people
something
love,
special.
and it's the sound of West Coast rock.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And it looks bizarre. It looks like a warehouse, but it sounds amazing.
Just that sweet spot.
Yep.
So
Yeah. But I think great thoughts. Yeah.
So the success of Marvin took you over to the States, basically. And you guys got to tour with Counting Crows, Alanis Morissette, The Beautiful South, and then appeared on Conan O'Brien. And I think I remember that. I think I remember actually watching that. How was that experience for you? Like, because that was that the first time you guys went over and played to US audiences?
I can't remember where Conan was in the scheme of things, like where it was in the sequence. I just remember it being, terrifying. Because it's taped, but it's you get one shot at it.
Yep.
There's no going back, and it's a pretty big. It was at the time, obviously, it had a big audience, so it was terrifying, but fantastic. Fantastic. The Americans don't mess around.
No, they don't. They're touring with
They
Alanis.
don't mess around. Yeah.
How was that? Because that would have been peak
Amazing.
Jagged Little Pill and that sort of stuff too, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah. It was right at the peak. It was amazing, actually. Just witnessing this explosion because she was just like at the absolute height of her power. And I was thinking about this today. I was thinking because I can't remember who I was talking to about it, but there was just moments she'd be backstage and she'd be going on and she'd walk past and she's a really nice lady and
Mm.
we got on pretty well, but she'd walk past and there'd be a woman in front of her with a torch and a woman behind her with a torch. It was like this religious procession backstage. And she got out on stage and there was 20,000 girls with long straight hair and 1,000 boyfriends. And the boyfriends would stand there with their hands in their pockets, and the
Yeah.
girls were. It was this almost religious, transported, ecstatic thing going on. It was pretty amazing. It was pretty amazing.
Angie?
Yeah, I think we were really lucky to the times that we got to do supports with certain bands. It happened at
Mm.
a time when they were like the Counting Crows was another one. That was when they were having their big hit as well. So and Everything But the Girl, we toured through America with them
Oh, right.
extensively,
Yeah.
and it was just this great moment in their careers where we got to be there, and we just had because I love Triangle on college radio, so
Mm.
people knew who we were. We did all these radio college festivals where there were a lot of the same bands on all of the bills, and we got to play with the Pretenders and Pavement and Beck, and they were all at this particular point in their careers,
Yeah.
and as were we. It just felt like this very prime, wonderful moment that we were lucky to be on, and to see those bands in their amazing moments
What
as
a
well.
memory.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow. Um, so how long has it been since you two have you been playing together at all? Because I know you had big breaks and you both have your own musical project. Like I remember seeing you, Angie, doing your own solo sort of stuff quite frequently, appearing on was it there was one late night thing that you appeared on. I swear was it something like Rove or something like that you were on, or I can't remember what it was, but I remember seeing you on something.
I don't know. I've done a few of those
Yeah.
TV things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
done the circuit.
how does it feel like being back together and playing these songs and getting ready for this? Because you are touring it in May, which I'm stoked for. So how's that feel?
Simon, are you?
Oh, I'm waiting for you.
Sorry, you're giving me a graceful pause
You
there.
go. You go.
It feels great. Yeah. So we have played together on and off over the years. It's been probably the longest period between the 21st birthday and the 30th, but even then
Mm.
we've done small shows together. Like we never don't do music together,
Mm.
but this one feels like a somehow a bigger revisiting of everything. I
Mm.
think possibly just where we're at in our lives, and the fact that we're ready to actually embark on some writing again together and rekindling it in that way.
Mm.
So yeah, there's something, and it's our Pearl birthday, so it's pretty
It's
massive.
huge.
That's a big
So
deal.
it does feel quite um, monumental. It is,
Yeah.
yeah.
We've had a few shows. Um, we did one in Canberra, but it's been mostly Melbourne and Victoria. We've done a few. We did the Marvin record launch here a couple of weeks ago. So we've done like 5 shows with the new folks in the band.
Mm.
And it's been for me, it's been really fantastic, super exciting, and really like a bit of a privilege for me. I kind of left the music alone for a long time, essentially 14 or 15 years, really. And I worked in production, and then I just joined the kind of corporate thing for 10 years there. And so I've just recently stopped doing that and coming back to make music. So for me, it's like, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's, for for Angie and the other guys, it's like, oh yeah, I mean, I know they're having a great time,
Yeah.
but it's an extra special sauce for me. Yeah.
So I'm going to bring this up now. Now I know, particularly for you, Angie, there was a bit of disdain for Accidentally Kelly Street for a while, but it seems like you've made your peace with it now. So how'd you do that?
I think just playing it,
Mm.
and I think forming a new relationship with the song. The person that I would say that brought me back to Accidentally Kelly Street, and you're not going to this is very left of field, is Neil Young.
All right.
I remember seeing him play. I think he's such a great artist, and seeing some of the shows that he does, like Greendale, for instance, where he just completely did this departure and did a whole play around the environment, which was whatever you want to make of that.
Yeah.
He can do whatever he wants. But at the end of every show, he would play Cinnamon Girl, and he would do all of his hits, and he would do what the audience came for, but they had to be there and see his art and where he was at on that day.
Yep.
And watching him do that and realizing how important it is to play the songs that people are there for, the people that have been with you the whole way.
Yep.
I realized that there's a real love there, and then we started playing Kelly Street, and I started really appreciating that people were there because they loved the song, and I learned more about it, and now I really enjoy playing it as well.
Wow. So you take into consideration what the Chili Peppers just went through. I don't know if you saw that when they weren't playing like on their tour, because they were touring 2 albums. And a lot of people don't realize that they released 2 albums and they were touring that, and they were playing the hits, but it was an outcry because they weren't playing like Under the Bridge or anything like that. I'm just going like, seriously, these guys have a massive catalog, and they're playing hits for you, but there was an outcry because they didn't play basically all Blood Sugar Sex Magic and One Hot Minute and Californication, and instead of focusing on I think they literally played 4 songs off their new albums, and the rest was their catalog. So. A lot of thought there. But it's nice to see that you've made that.
Yeah, but that's the trade. Is you write these songs and they become a part of people's life, and so when you play a show, it's not just your show. It's people are there, and you've started a trade with them where when you're on stage, they deserve to hear the songs that they came for. So I think. I've realised at some stage that it's just rude.
Are you going to be playing the album chronologically?
I kind of think that's what... Yep.
So you'll be playing accidentally Kelly Street like second.
So... second,
yes. Yeah. That's great.
Yep. Yeah, and I had a lot of trepidation about that because I'm an old school sort of tread the boards kind of guy, and I'm like, you got to arrange a set list so that peaks and valleys and emotional payoffs and blah blah blah, and then you go out with a bang. No,
yay! I love
this
it.
is the record company's set list. Yeah, yeah, and the record company are like, no, you've got to put the hit first or second, maybe, and so that's what we're doing, and it worked. It worked because people, you forget that people actually listen to albums from start to finish, and that's in a way that's kind of what they come for too.
I still love that because people are going to be, oh no, they won't be playing it till last, and they're going to rock up like late, and they just go, "Where's Kelly Street?" Go, "We played it, suckers. You should have been here from the start."
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. We have been stressing that we're playing stuff in order, but we might actually. That's a good point. We might just sort of let people know, don't be late if you want to hear Kelly Street because it's coming up.
Put a
fast.
disclaimer in the ticket.
Yeah.
We play the album in order.
Yeah, don't have to play it twice.
No, hell no.
Yeah, that's right.
Are you going to be sneaking like Bizarre Love Triangle in there and that sort of stuff too? Even though this is the Marvin tour, like I know Love Triangle came after, but.
Yep.
Oh, lovely.
Yep.
Yeah,
playing it all.
The international release of Marvin.
Yeah.
So it started off as a short album, and it's become a bit of a longer album. So we play the album as per the international release.
That's amazing.
Which has Love Triangle on it.
Awesome. All right. I'm going to wrap things up now because I'm running out of time with this. But yeah, this has been an absolute pleasure talking to both you, Angie and Simon. Thank you for being a part of this, and sorry for the camera mishaps and stuff like that. Rest assured that the camera I was working on here was working fine. It's just you guys got the glitchy one. I'm so excited to see you guys on tour, and thank you for bringing an album like Marvin to life. And thank you for being part of Australian music history. It's been an honour talking to you.
Thanks for just great thoughts and great words and challenging us, challenging our thinking for this next record. Awesome.
I'm a muso. I talk like a musician. I don't like asking the generic questions. They're boring as shit. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Stay on the line there. I'll have a quick
Thank you.
debrief with you. But
Thanks.
everyone else, adios. Big thanks to Simon and Angie from FRENTE. Again, this is the well, that's the cassette. That's the cassette. You know, things that you put into this thing called like a cassette player or a Walkman, which a lot of people don't really have anymore. But yeah, find Marvin the Album on Spotify. Probably easier for you. But if you can find the vinyl, even better. Go see them as they tour 30 years of Marvin the Album in all major capital cities through April. Oh, was it May? May and June, I think. Yeah. Details are on the website anyway. More to come, because I'm a sucker for punishment and I do things like that. I hope you really enjoyed this podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for supporting local music, live music, Australian music, all sorts of music. You guys are legends. Bye-bye.